Some people seem to attract success effortlessly, but it's never luck, it's habit. The small, consistent behaviors they repeat each day shape their confidence, sharpen their discipline, and create unstoppable momentum. These routines are not random, they're engineered. Each action builds identity, each choice rewires the mind. The secret isn't talent, it's alignment. Align your habits with the life you want and success begins to chase you. In a few moments, I will teach you the daily winning habits that build confidence, sharpen discipline, and attract lasting success. Decide who you are. Every day, each morning, you rise to a quiet battlefield, not one of swords, but of identity. Before the world greets you, your mind asks one silent question: who am I today? And if you don't answer, it will choose for you. It will pull from yesterday's fears, yesterday's failures. And it will dress you in the same limitations you swore to outgrow. But what if each morning you chose deliberately? What if you stood at your mirror and declared, "This is who I am becoming," not a wish, not a whisper, a decision? Because success doesn't begin with results, it begins with identity. And identity is not found, it's forged. A farmer does not wait to feel like a farmer before planting. He plants, and by the harvest, he is one. So what does this mean for you? It means you wake up and write one sentence, one thought, one truth that captures the person you're determined to be. I am focused. I am strong. I do what needs to be done. Say it, write it, and act like it's already true. Now picture this. Two men rise with the sun. One lets the world define his worth. The other defines himself before the world gets a chance. Who do you think will conquer the day? So ask yourself, have you claimed your identity, or are you renting one from the past? When the world pushes against you, will you remember who you said you were? You must decide. And decide loudly. The world does not wait for a quiet man to find himself. It rewards the man who declares himself and then proves it by action. Do the hard thing first. You wake up and your mind begins its dance. It whispers comfort. It suggests you start small, ease in, wait. But success doesn't visit the man who delays. It visits the one who tackles the dragon while it's still asleep. The hardest task on your list, that's your dragon. And you must face it first. Why? Because if you don't, it grows. It watches you dodge it and feeds off your fear. Soon the small task becomes a mountain, and you, once bold, shrink under its shadow. But if you strike early, you rise above every obstacle before it begins. This isn't about courage, it's about timing. The man who acts early commands his day. He tells the world, I lead. I don't follow delay. But how do you do it? You prepare your attack the night before. You write down your battle. You know its shape, its name, its steps. And when the morning comes, you move before your feelings catch up. Action first, emotion later. Now imagine this. A worker stares at his biggest task, waiting for motivation. Another rolls up his sleeves and begins, knowing the fire will come once he moves. Which man earns victory? So ask yourself, are you a commander of your day or a captive of procrastination? Have you let hesitation lead your life? If you want to build momentum, start by building courage at sunrise. The strongest man is not the one who feels no fear, but the one who walks through it first. Speak to yourself like a king. Every man walks with a voice in his head. And the tragedy? Most men let that voice speak like a beggar. I'm not ready. I don't belong. I can't. But you were never born to obey that voice. You were born to rule over it. The mind believes what it hears most. And if you've let fear sit on the throne of your thoughts, it will rule your actions. But what if, instead, you crowned your voice with authority? You don't have to feel confident to speak like a king. You speak it, and the confidence begins to rise. Because words are not reflections of reality. They are builders of it. So speak aloud. Say, I deserve excellence. Say, I walk with purpose. Say, I don't shrink when challenged. And say it until your mind stops arguing. How do you start? Find one statement, one line of power. Say it in the morning, out loud, with your chest lifted. Then say it again while walking, while working, until your world aligns with it. Picture this. One man mutters doubt and wonders why the world overlooks him. Another speaks belief into his bones until the world takes notice. Same ability, different voice, different outcome. So ask yourself, have you been talking to yourself like a king or like a servant waiting for permission? If you want to master your destiny, you must first master your language. And it starts not with others, but with what you whisper to yourself in the quiet hours. Speak boldly, speak often, speak like your future depends on it, because it does. Move with certainty, even when you doubt. There will never be a perfect moment. You already know that. Yet some part of you, some quiet whisper in your mind keeps waiting for it. Waiting for the day when the fear disappears, the plan is flawless, the heart is steady, and the green light turns on. But that day never comes, because readiness is not a condition, it's a choice. The man who waits to feel ready will always be late to his own life. The world doesn't pause for your confidence, it moves. And only those willing to move with trembling hands, uncertain breath, and an unpolished plan arrive. Clarity, you think, is a prerequisite, but clarity is not the beginning, it is the reward. You act first, you stumble, speak poorly, step awkwardly, but each motion sharpens your direction. You do not become wise before the journey, you become wise because you walked it. Every master was once an amateur. Every confident voice once cracked in fear. The difference between the one who grows and the one who fades isn't talent, it's motion. It's the courage to say, I don't know the whole path, but I will still begin. Let your knees shake. Let your voice tremble. You are not disqualified by your fear. You are defined by your decision to rise anyway. You don't need to move mountains today. Just take one action. Not the easy one that flatters your image, but the one you've been avoiding. The first step into the unknown. Take it. Let it be messy. Let it be imperfect, but let it be real. Picture this. Two men. One sits by the window, waiting for a sign, for certainty, for the stars to whisper, go! The other man, less sure, more afraid, begins to walk. He stumbles. He doubts. But by sunset, he is further along, weathered, tested, and wiser, while the first man still waits. Same day, same dream, different lives. So ask yourself, are you keeping your future on hold until the fear disappears, or will you walk with your fear beside you and keep moving anyway? The man who moves without knowing, without certainty, without perfection, becomes the man who knows. Because action creates clarity. It builds momentum. It forces growth. Success was never about being sure, it was about being willing. Being willing to strike first, even if your hand shakes. Being willing to walk forward, even if the map is missing. The bold are not fearless, they are simply tired of standing still. You don't need everything figured out to begin. You need to begin so you can figure it out. The road reveals itself to those who dare walk it. So start, and trust this. The moment you act, the man you are becomes the man who wins. Protect your environment like a kingdom. You are not just a man, you are a fortress. Stone by stone, decision by decision, you are building a kingdom. But even the strongest walls can fall, not from brute force, but from slow, silent decay. From what you allow inside, thoughts, habits, people. These are not harmless visitors. They are either allies to your vision or enemies of your soul. And every day you open the gates. Most men don't collapse from lack of strength. They collapse because they let rot seep in. They laugh at foolish jokes. They tolerate laziness in the name of rest. They let men who despise discipline speak into their lives, and inch by inch they lose their edge. Their standards sink, their ambition softens, and before long they are not who they once were, not because they chose failure, but because they allowed weakness. But you, if you are to rise, must stand guard. Your environment is more than where you sleep. It's what you see, what you hear, what you accept. A cluttered room is not just a mess, it's a signal to your brain. Chaos is allowed here. A noisy friend who laughs at self-improvement is not just harmless company. He is a voice chipping away at your growth. Your atmosphere whispers into your mind every moment, so make sure it speaks power. Begin with the space around you. Clean it, not for appearance, but for alignment. Let every object in your room serve a purpose or a piece. Remove what mocks your mission. Make your home a temple to your future. Then, protect your time, guard it like a treasure chest. Refuse to give hours to gossip or distraction. Give your minutes to meaning. Choose books over noise, silence over shallow company, direction over diversion. Picture this clearly. One man wakes in a room of order. His tools are ready. His space breathes clarity. He is reminded, even in silence, that he is a builder. Another man wakes to clutter, confusion, and comfort. He scratches his head and wonders why the fire inside him grows cold. But look around, and the answer is clear. You are always becoming what you surround yourself with. If your environment praises mediocrity, you will struggle to rise. If it echoes strength, you will walk in power. So ask yourself now, what enters your gates? Who speaks into your life? What are you tolerating that should have been cast out long ago? You are not just a man, you are a gatekeeper. You are a living kingdom. Guard your walls, strengthen your halls, and never forget what you let in will either raise you or ruin you. Make no excuse. Ever. Excuses feel like protection. Soft, reasonable, comforting lies that wrap around your ego when things don't go as planned. It wasn't the right time. I didn't have the right tools. No one supported me. These words slip easily from the tongue, and for a fleeting moment they soothe the sting of failure. But excuses are not shields. They do not protect, they imprison. They bind you, not to what could be, but to what was. They chain your future to your past and tell you, this is as far as you go. You may deceive others with your reasons. You may even collect sympathy, nods of understanding, and comforting reassurances. But deep within you lives a judge, a silent, incorruptible witness that remembers the truth. It knows when you had a choice and chose safety. It knows when you flinched instead of fought, and no excuse ever silences that voice. You think you need better conditions, more time, more support, but history shows otherwise. Great men were not born in comfort. They were forged in storms. They were betrayed, misunderstood, ridiculed, and doubted, but they acted anyway. While others waited for the weather to clear, they built in the rain. While others drafted excuses, they delivered results. Their secret? Not talent, not timing, resolve. A decision made so firmly, so finally, that no condition could override it. To kill excuses, you must stand naked before your life and say, every inch of this is mine. The good, the bad, the unfinished, the broken. You take ownership, not to punish yourself, but to empower yourself. Because once you accept that your actions, not your circumstances, shape your destiny, you become free. Free to learn, free to change, free to grow. Imagine two craftsmen. One holds up his work and blames the crooked edge on a dull blade. If only I had sharper tools, he says. The other sees the same flaw, but walks to the whetstone and sharpens the edge. He works again. He improves. He accepts responsibility. Not to feel guilt, but to regain control. And over time, the second man earns trust, opportunity, mastery. The first man, still blaming the blade. So ask yourself now, with courage, have you been hiding behind reasons or stepping forward despite them? Have you told yourself a story so many times that you've mistaken it for truth? Are you waiting for sympathy or ready to embrace strength? No man carves his name into history with apologies. He carves it with action, with responsibility, with fierce accountability that says, I'll fix it, I'll face it, I'll rise from it. The world does not remember those who explain their failures. It remembers those who answered them. So say less, speak fewer justifications, shrink your vocabulary of blame, and expand your capacity for effort. When the next test comes, and it will, don't give it a story, give it strength. Burn your excuses, set them ablaze, watch them fall to ash, because they have never served you, they have only stalled you. And you, my friend, were not built to stall, you were built to build, to become, to conquer. And you do that not when everything is right, but when you decide you are done waiting to be ready. That moment is now. Learn. While others sleep, while others rest, you rise. Not out of pride, not for applause, not to outpace the man next to you, but to outgrow the man you were yesterday. You understand something they don't. The world doesn't reward comfort. It rewards mastery. And mastery is born in the unseen hours when most have surrendered to sleep, to silence without meaning. You rise because you know the best way to rise above is to learn what others ignore. Knowledge is power, but only when pursued with urgency. It isn't enough to say, you'll learn someday. You must steal time from ease and give it to effort. The morning becomes your university. The night becomes your library. The conversations you overhear, the failures you reflect on, the books you open. This is your education. And if your eyes are truly open, the world itself will become your greatest teacher. Most men complain they don't have time to learn, but time doesn't arrive at your doorstep with a welcome note. It is carved, chiseled from the bones of comfort, distraction, and delay. You cut away minutes from the unnecessary, the indulgent, the idle. And in that space, you build yourself. You pick up a book while others pick up excuses. You apply while others forget. That is how you rise. The method is simple. Choose a subject that strengthens your future. Whether it's finance, speech, strategy, leadership, or discipline, find something that matters and make it your craft. Don't consume information like a man stuffing himself with empty galleries. Consume with purpose. Read slowly, think deeply, ask questions, test what you learn, act on it, because knowledge without motion is just another distraction dressed in intelligence. Now picture two men. One finishes his day, slumps into a couch, and lets his mind float on idle chatter and shallow noise. He wakes the next morning sluggish, unsure, already behind. The other man finishes his day with intention. He opens a book, not to pass time, but to claim it. He takes notes, he reflects, he prepares, he rises the next morning with clarity and direction. Over time, who do you think will own the future? The one entertained or the one educated? So ask yourself, have you made learning your weapon or your excuse? Do you say, I don't have time, or do you make time because you know your future depends on it? Genius is not born. Genius is built, and it's built in hours no one sees, in moments of silence that others fill with noise, in choices to learn instead of delay. You don't need more talent. You don't need more motivation. You need more wisdom, and wisdom is not loud. It is not rushed. It doesn't come wrapped in dopamine. It lives in silence, in study, in solitude, and it only reveals itself to the man who is willing to seek. Every lesson you absorb today, every page, every reflection, every practice becomes a foundation stone for the empire you're building. You are not just learning facts, you are learning weapons. And one day, when the world looks up and calls you brilliant, you will know the truth. You were not born special. You simply studied while they slept. Never complain. Turn it into command. When a man complains, he exposes something deeper than frustration. He exposes his belief that he is powerless. In every sigh, every grumble, every whispered lament about how unfair life is, he sends a message to the world. I have surrendered. A complaint is not a cry for help. It is a confession of weakness. And while the world may nod with sympathy, make no mistake, it will not wait for him. It will move forward without him. Because life does not respond to pity, it responds to power. You were not made to be pitied. You were not born to stand in line behind circumstances, begging them to change. You were made to command, to shape, to direct your life through storm and stillness alike. And that command begins with your voice. Not just the words you say to others, but the words you whisper to yourself when no one is listening. Every time you complain, you waste breath. You waste energy that could have been invested into action. You give away your position, you plant a flag in the land of defeat, and wonder why victory avoids you. It's too hard. They don't get me. Life is unfair. Yes, maybe it is, but fairness is not your path. Power is, and no man has ever built a legacy by moaning about the mud beneath his boots. So what do you do when the weight is heavy? When the people around you don't understand? When life throws stones and waits to see what you'll do? You turn your complaints into commands. You turn every I hate this into here's how I will face it. You shift your energy from reaction to creation. You say, this is where I stand. This is what I will do next. Watch me move. It's not about pretending that problems, it's about refusing to give them your voice. Because your voice is not a tool for whining. It is a weapon for shaping reality. The man who learns to speak with direction instead of despair changes the trajectory of his life. Even if the storm rages on, even if the pressure builds, even if no one claps or cares, because eventually the world bends not to the complainer, but to the commander. Picture it. Two men caught in the same storm. Rain pours, wind howls. One raises his fists to the sky, shouting blame, curses, pleas. The other, he works. He gathers wood, builds shelter, makes fire. He doesn't wait for the sky to apologize. He adapts. He endures. And soon, he thrives. Same storm, same hardship, different outcome. So ask yourself, have your words been weapons or wounds? Have you been building with your mouth or bleeding with it? If you've been speaking defeat, do not be surprised when defeat surrounds you. If you've been rehearsing your limitations, life will deliver them to your door. But if you begin to speak strength, even while trembling, something shifts, your posture changes, your energy sharpens, the world takes note. Speak as if your future is listening, because it is. Every word is a seed. Some men plant weeds and wonder why their garden won't grow. Others speak vision, discipline, determination, and their lives slowly transform into what they've declared. You are the architect of your outcome. You do not get to choose every condition, but you always choose your response. And that response begins with the words you allow to escape your mouth. Stop complaining, start commanding. Let the world hear not your sorrow, but your strategy. Say less about what you hate, say more about what you're building. When others whine, you work. When others curse the darkness, you light a fire. When others retreat into excuses, you rise with a plan. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. You were never meant to grovel in the mud of misfortune. You were meant to rise, speak, and lead. Turn your complaints into commands. Speak not from pain, but from power. And watch as your reality, day by day, begins to follow your voice. Stick to one path until you win. The man who changes roads every mile may feel like he's moving, but he never arrives. He hears of a faster way, a newer method, a shinier promise, and he pivots again and again. He sprints, then stalls. He starts over with excitement, then fades in frustration. By the end of the journey, he's not further ahead, he's just more exhausted. Because movement without direction is deception, and desire without discipline is dust. He tells himself he's flexible, open-minded, a seeker of new opportunities, but what he really is afraid. Afraid to stay long enough to be tested, afraid to repeat the same hard thing, afraid of the quiet seasons where nothing shows. So he keeps shifting, hoping the next thing will be easier, the next method, the next mentor, the next miracle. But success doesn't reward the restless. It rewards the rooted. Now look at the other man. He picks a path, not because it's easy, not because it's glamorous, but because it's his. He chooses, and then he commits. While others jump from idea to idea, he digs in. While the world shouts, "Try this instead," he keeps his eyes forward, not stubbornly, but resolutely, because he understands something the wanderer doesn't. Progress is not in the novelty, it is in the consistency. You want results? You want something to show for your pain? Then you must learn to stay. You must have the patience to endure silence, the humility to repeat the basics, the courage to face boredom and say, "Still I walk," because most of success isn't dazzling, it's dull. It's repetitive, it's lonely, but it works. The treasure doesn't belong to the man who starts fastest, it belongs to the one who finishes. So how do you become that man? You stop switching plans every time the wind changes. You stop chasing shortcuts and start sharpening your sword. You pick one mission and you walk it like it's your oath. You track your work, not the applause. You measure your effort, not the noise. And when doubt comes, and it will, you nod and keep walking. You remind yourself, the goal is not comfort, it is completion. Picture two men planting trees. One plants in one spot, then hears of better soil, and digs up his seed to move it. Again and again. Every few days he starts over. The other man plants and stays. He waters, even when the dirt looks dead. He nurtures, even when others laugh. And in time, the one who stayed sees life rise from the ground. His garden blooms. His patience is rewarded. Because growth takes time. And the man who trusts the process wins. Ask yourself, are you a wanderer or a builder? Are you looking for excitement or results? Do you get bored and abandon your path? Or do you push through the boredom, trusting that something is forming beneath the surface? Because success isn't sudden, it's slow, it's steady, it's earned through relentless repetition, when no one is watching, when progress is invisible, when your feet hurt and your heart whispers, "Is it worth it?" And you answer, "Yes, because I said I would." So choose your path, not lightly, but with resolve, and then walk it. Through setbacks, through silence, through seasons that make no sense. Walk it until your feet bleed. Walk it until the fruit shows. Walk it until the doubters fall quiet and the dream stands tall. And when they ask, "How did you do it?" you'll look them in the eye and say, "I never stopped." That's the secret. Not talent, not speed, not luck, just the unshakable decision to stay the course while others scatter, to water your roots, to trust your path, to keep walking, no matter what. Keep your words, especially to yourself. The fastest way to destroy belief is to break a promise to yourself. Not to someone else, not to the world, but to you. Because when you say, "I'll do it," and then you don't, your mind watches. It remembers. And with every broken word, you teach it a dangerous lesson. My voice cannot be trusted. It happens quietly, almost invisibly. One skipped workout, one delayed decision, one excuse too many. And soon, the man who once spoke with conviction begins to hesitate. He doubts not just his goals, but himself. Not because he lacked talent, but because he stopped believing that his own word had weight. But here's the truth. Your confidence is not born from external applause. It's forged in internal integrity. When you say, "I'll wake at dawn," and you rise before the sun, no one needs to cheer. You feel something shift inside, a silent nod of strength, a private oath honored. And in that moment, you are no longer just a man with dreams, you are a man with discipline. And that changes everything. The man who honors his own word, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, begins to carry himself differently. His back straightens. His decisions become cleaner. His mind sharpens like a blade honed on stone. Why? Because he knows he can count on himself. And in a world where chaos, betrayal, and failure often come from outside, that kind of inner certainty is a fortress. Too many men chase honor from others. They want titles, trophies, recognition. But they forget that the highest honor is self-respect. That unshakable knowledge that you showed up when it mattered. That you kept going when comfort tempted you. That you didn't need an audience to be accountable. You only needed your own reflection. And that kind of honor is not built in the spotlight. It's built in silence. When you do what you said you would do, not to impress, but to align. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. And this alignment, it fuels you. It gives you clarity. It gives you power. It gives you peace. Because nothing eats away at the soul faster than the quiet shame of self-betrayal, and nothing lifts it higher than the quiet pride of self-loyalty. So what does this actually look like? It's simple. You say, "I'll rise early," and you rise. Groggy, maybe, but you do it. You promise yourself, "I'll complete this task," and you do. No matter how slow, no matter how imperfect, you draw a line in the sand. This is my standard, and you do not cross it, even when no one's around to enforce it. Because the man who needs external accountability will never be as powerful as the man who holds himself to account. Now picture two men, both tired, both busy, both with responsibilities pressing in. The first tells himself he'll train today, but when the moment comes, the bed feels too warm, the excuses too strong. He rolls over and says, "Tomorrow." The second man, equally exhausted, equally tempted, gets up anyway. Maybe his workout isn't perfect. Maybe it's just movement, but he shows up. And that difference, small in the moment, becomes massive over time. One man grows softer, less sure, more emotional. The other grows sharper, more durable, iron-willed, not because of motivation, but because of follow-through. Because when he said he would, he did. Now, ask yourself, can you trust your own word? Or have you turned your voice into background noise, something you hear but don't believe? The world will not always keep its promise to you. Circumstances will shift. People will disappoint. Luck will run dry. But in all of it, you must remain constant. If your signature holds weight in business, if your promise matters to your friends, let your word to yourself mean even more. Because that is the foundation. That is the starting point of greatness. You cannot build a legacy on broken vows to self. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead your own instincts. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you plant a seed of confidence. You reinforce belief. You build a man who can be trusted, not just by the world, but by himself. So stand by your word, not loudly, not with theatrics, but with quiet fire, with a kind of inner pride that doesn't need to be posted because it's proven. In the darkness, in the early hours, in the moments when giving up would be easy, and you didn't. That's where greatness begins. That's where the man who wins is born, not in public applause, but in private discipline. Stand by your word, every time. And in time, the world will follow. Show up before you feel ready. Most men are waiting. They don't admit it, not out loud, but look closely, and you'll see it in their posture, in the hesitation before they speak, in the way they daydream silently, plan excessively, but act rarely. They are waiting, waiting for the sign, for the feeling, for the mythical moment when the clouds part, the path clears, and confidence comes riding in like a chariot from the heavens. That moment, the one where everything aligns and certainty replaces fear, is the great illusion. It does not come. Not for you, not for anyone. Because readiness is not something you receive, it is something you build. It is not granted by circumstance or bestowed by luck. It is forged through action, through repetition, through movement when you least feel like moving. You don't wake up one day ready to do the hard thing. You do the hard thing and then you feel ready. Action births confidence, not the other way around. The men you admire, those who seem so unshakable, so decisive, so prepared, They weren't born that way. They didn't wait for courage to arrive before they started. They started while trembling. They started while unsure. And because they started, something inside them changed. Slowly, yes, but powerfully. One action gave them feedback. One moment of courage gave birth to a second. One imperfect step opened the door to the next. The storm didn't disappear, but they learned to walk through it. They became strong, not in theory, but in motion. So how do you become one of them? You stop waiting for the right feeling. You stop negotiating with your hesitation. You stop asking your fear for permission to begin. Because if you keep asking fear for the green light, you'll spend your life stuck at the red. Feelings come and go like weather, but greatness belongs to the man who moves regardless of the weather. You plant your feet, you tighten your jaw, and you begin, even if your hands shake, even if your mind doubts, even if your heart whispers, "What if I fail?" Because even failure in motion is worth more than perfection in pause. When you act, you collect data. You gain experience. You grow. Even when you stumble, you are further along than the man who stayed behind. Planning, revising, waiting, always waiting. That man ends up with more excuses than achievements, more dreams than results. Picture this clearly. Two men stand before a blank page. One says, "I'll begin when inspiration hits me." He waits for lightning, for the perfect words, for the inner music to play. The other man picks up the pen. He writes, badly, maybe, clumsily. His first words don't impress anyone. But he moves, he shapes, he creates. And tomorrow, when he sits down again, the words come easier. Eventually, that second man becomes the author. While the first, still waiting for a sign. So ask yourself, are you that man? Have you been waiting to feel ready? Have you convinced yourself that your inaction is wisdom, that hesitation is planning, that delay is preparation? Or are you willing to become the man who moves in the dark, who reaches forward even when he cannot see the whole path? Life does not reward hesitation, it punishes it. It erodes dreams with delay, it fills the lives of the hesitant with regret and what-ifs. But it rewards movement. It gives more to the man who shows up, even clumsy, even uncertain, than to the man who sits in thought, polishing a plan he'll never execute. The greatest journeys always begin in darkness. The first step is never taken with clarity, it's taken with courage. Courage to move even when you're unsure, to speak even when your voice trembles, to build even when the blueprint isn't finished. You'll never feel ready, not fully. But you don't need to be fully ready, you just need to be willing. Because here's what happens. The second you act, something awakens. The fog doesn't lift all at once, but you begin to see the outline of the road. The confusion lessens, the fear quiets, and you realize it wasn't the path that changed, it was you. Your movement gave you momentum. Your momentum gave you confidence, and your confidence gave you clarity. But none of it arrives until you begin. So stop waiting. Stop praying for signs while ignoring your own potential. Stop preparing your tools and start using them. You have what you need, not everything, but enough to start. Take the first step, then take the next. Let each one teach you, refine you, reveal you. Don't ask the world to prove you're ready. Prove it to yourself. Stand up, step forward, begin. That's how every great story starts. Not with certainty, but with a man willing to move while uncertain. Be that man. Move. Work without needing recognition. There is a dangerous desire that lingers in the hearts of many men, a hunger that whispers not for greatness, but for recognition. It is the craving to be seen, to be validated, to be applauded before the first stone is laid, before the first battle is won. Most men want the prize before they pay the price. They want praise before perseverance. They want to be known, admired, followed before they've even built something worthy of respect. But this desire, if left unchecked, is fatal to mastery. It does not push you forward, it pulls you apart. True greatness is not made in the spotlight. It is forged in silence. The world's strongest oak did not rise to its height with cameras flashing. It grew slowly, quietly, rooted in solitude, tested by seasons, strengthened by wind. No one clapped when it broke through the soil. No one applauded as it pushed against the storm. Yet it grew, and that is what made it strong. The finest craftsman does not begin with applause. He begins in a quiet workshop with bare hands and stubborn focus. The man who rises highest, who truly carves a name into the granite of time, often begins at the bottom, alone, with nothing but his conviction and the will to keep showing up when no one notices. Do not seek validation. Seek excellence. Let your joy be in the work itself, not in the noise that may or may not follow. When you move, let it be because you must, not because you hope someone is watching. Let the reward be in the execution, in the progress, in the sharpening of your edge, in the power you feel from honoring your word. That is the reward no one can give and no one can take. If you want to train this discipline, this sacred silence, begin with one task a day. One thing you complete with full effort and zero announcement. Do not post about it. Do not seek a pat on the back. Make secrecy your training ground. Let it refine your intention. Let it purify your motives. Build in the dark where only your character is watching, because the man who learns to work without applause becomes immune to the addiction of approval, and that makes him unstoppable. Now picture two men. Both have ambition. One rushes to share it, eager for encouragement, desperate for attention. He tells the world what he will do. He gathers likes, hearts, comments, but he hasn't even started. The other man says nothing. He picks up his tools. He works in the quiet. He fails, refines, learns, repeats. He doesn't need cheers to move. He just moves. A year passes. One is still talking. The other is standing on what he built. So ask yourself, do you need others to see you before you believe in yourself? Or are you willing to believe first, work first, become first, before anyone notices? The man who works unseen becomes undeniable. Because when the foundation is deep, the structure does not need promotion. It speaks for itself. And when your results grow too large to ignore, the world will have to see you, but by then, you won't need their attention. You will have earned their respect. Be patient. Let the work take root. Let your silence become your strength. Because silence is not weakness. It is focus. It is integrity. It is the proof that you do not need to be seen to be strong. The greatest men in history were often ignored at first. They labored in silence. They built what others didn't understand. They were mocked, doubted, dismissed, until the day their work stood undeniable. Until the world looked up and asked, where did he come from? But those men didn't come from nowhere. They came from the shadows, from the grind, from the quiet corners of discipline where greatness is born. So train in private, succeed in silence. Do the work that no one sees so you can create the results that no one can deny. Let your proof be in what you become, not in what you say. No fanfare, no drama, just progress, one task at a time, one silent victory stacked upon the last. And one day, without trying to be seen, you'll be impossible to ignore. Practice discipline when it's easiest to slip. Discipline is not built in hardship. It is tested there. It does not arrive when chaos strikes. It reveals itself. Hardship is the storm that shows you whether your foundation was real or imaginary. But the construction of that foundation, that happens in the quiet, in the small, forgettable choices. It happens when you could cut corners and no one would notice, when you could step back, sleep in, say just this once, and the world would nod and say, it's okay. That's where discipline is built. Not in the fire, but in the flicker, in the invisible moment that no one applauds, but you remember. The truth is, most men don't fall in chaos. They fall in comfort. They fall when it's easy to relax, when the pressure is low, when they believe the danger has passed. That's when the inner guard is dropped. That's when softness creeps in. They don't fall from pain, they fall from pleasure. I've earned this. Yes, today. I'll start again tomorrow. These are the whispers of comfort, the slow poison of potential. And they never scream. They gently persuade. But the damage is done all the same. You think no one will notice? You will. And your mind will. It will remember that you said one thing and did another. And over time, that gap between promise and performance becomes a chasm. Your identity begins to crack, not because of one failure, but because of repeated micro-abandonment. And each time you choose ease over principle, you train yourself to flinch, to fold, to fail in advance. Discipline is the act of choosing what you want most over what you want now. It is the quiet voice that says, this shortcut costs too much. It's not glamorous, it's not heroic, it's not a highlight reel. It's choosing black coffee over sugar, silence over distraction, motion over excuses. One step forward every day, even when you're tired, annoyed, uncertain, or uninspired. That's the real war. Not the battle in public, the battle in your own head, when you're alone, and the only person who can hold the line is you. So how do you forge this unshakable core? You don't wait for a crisis to summon it. You train for it now, in the small sacrifices. You wake up before comfort tells you to. You skip the second plate when indulgence tempts you. You write one more sentence. You lift one more rep. These are not big acts, but they build big men. And the most important part, you do them when no one is watching. Especially then, because true discipline is not performance, it is preparation. Imagine two men, both committed, both hungry, at least in words. One keeps his word on weekends, on holidays, on bad days. The other lets himself slide when it's understandable. A year passes. The first has scars and calluses. His habits are forged in steel. The second has stories and reasons. His routines have gaps. His mindset has cracks. One is ready for anything. The other is hoping no storm arrives. Ask yourself, are you training your will or giving it vacation days? Are you building a fortress or telling yourself a fairy tale? Because willpower doesn't grow when you rest it. It grows when you use it, when you stress it, when you stretch it past the line of convenience. And here's the truth. Discipline doesn't mean you never fail. It means you don't stay fallen. It means you know how to get back up because you practice getting up. It means you have rehearsed resilience. And when hardship finally shows up, and it will, you don't panic. You respond. You move. You endure. Not because you're perfect, but because you're prepared. The man who stands guard over his discipline, day in, day out, cannot be broken easily. Not because life gives him less pain, but because he's trained for it. He's fortified himself in the daily discomforts that most men ignore. While others wait for motivation, he moves from principle. While others explain their slip, he executes despite the weather, despite the mood, despite the noise. Discipline is not punishment. It is power in disguise. It is the fuel of freedom, the forge of character, the path to mastery. You don't become disciplined by chance. You choose it over and over again. And eventually it becomes who you are, not because of a single dramatic act, but because of 1,000 invisible ones. So choose it now. Choose it today. Choose it when it would be easy not to. That's how you become the man who doesn't need the storm to feel strong, because he's already built like stone. Master your mind before you master the world. Your greatest battlefield is not your workplace, it's not your career, not the competition, not the world pushing back against your goals. The true battlefield, the one that decides the course of everything else, is in your thought. Before you can conquer any mission outside yourself, you must first conquer the world within, because no amount of strength, skill, or opportunity can compensate for a mind at war with itself. Every day, before your feet hit the ground, the battle has already begun. Your mind wakes up before you do, and if left unchecked, it starts to whisper. It reminds you of the failures. It warns you of the risks. It asks, what if you're not enough? And if you listen to it passively, fear becomes the architect of your plans. Doubt becomes the reason you hesitate. Insecurity becomes the lens through which you see every challenge. But if you take control, if you seize the reins of your mind, the same thoughts that once broke you can be forged into weapons. Your mind, once undisciplined and scattered, becomes your most loyal soldier. It stands ready. It shields you from weakness. It reminds you of truth. It pushes you forward when everything else says stop. But this transformation is not automatic. It's trained, and it begins the moment you choose to lead your thoughts rather than follow them. The world outside is merely a mirror of the war within. You think you're losing to your circumstances? Look again. You're losing to the voice in your head telling you that you can't. You think someone else is blocking your path? No. It's your own hesitation, your own chaos, your own fragmented focus. And that means the solution isn't out there, it's in here. You must first win inside, and then the world will follow. So how do you begin to win that invisible war? You start before the noise begins, before the world starts making demands of you. You take time every morning to enter the silence. Sit with your mind, just you and the storm. Listen carefully, not to obey, but to observe. What's rising? Fear, insecurity, arrogance, laziness, name it, face it, and then correct it. If fear appears, respond with strength. If doubt whispers, crush it with truth. If a lie creeps in, like you'll never make it, answer with the facts of your effort, your discipline, your past victories, your unbreakable intention. This is not some passive exercise in positive thinking. This is war strategy. You are inspecting your own ranks, sharpening your weapons, removing any traitor thoughts before they sabotage your mission. The enemy is not always out there. It often lives in the unchecked corner of your mind. Now imagine two men. Both wake at the same hour. One immediately dives into reaction. He checks his messages, feeds himself chaos before his own voice has a chance to speak. The other man sits first in silence. He breathes. He watches his mind, shapes his thoughts, centers his focus. By noon, the first man is already scattered, beaten by distraction, flustered by doubt, unclear about his direction. The second man has already won, not because the day was easier, but because he was stronger. His mind obeys him, his emotions serve him, his focus is unbreakable. Ask yourself honestly, have you mastered your thoughts or have they mastered you? When pressure rises, who decides your response? When fear creeps in, who wins that moment? Are you the commander of your mind or just another casualty of your own chaos? You cannot build an empire, any empire, whether it's a business, a career, a legacy, with a mind full of clutter and confusion. You must clear the fog. You must sharpen the blade. You must focus the light. It's not about thinking perfectly. It's about thinking deliberately, with intention, with power, with discipline. That's what makes the difference between a man who folds and a man who forges. The great truth is this: the world will try to break you. It will test you. It will throw obstacles, noise, betrayal, failure. But none of that can truly defeat a man who has already won the battle within. If you have clarity in your thoughts, direction in your decisions, and fire in your will, nothing outside can touch you. Because your greatest weapon is not your title, not your income, not your strategy. It is your mind. So build it like a fortress. Patrol its walls daily. Question every thought that enters, and only let in what serves your mission. Train your mind to work for you, not against you. Master the silence. Command your focus. Sharpen your thoughts like blades ready for war. If you win the war inside, the outside world can test you, but it cannot defeat you, because you will not be ruled by fear. You will not be led by doubt. You will not be weakened by distraction. You will walk through storms calm, clear, and ready. And that is how you conquer. From the inside out. Give more than you promised. You want success? Then stop doing the minimum. Stop calculating how little you can get away with and still call it effort. Stop measuring yourself against the lowest standard that qualifies as acceptable. If you want to be exceptional, then give more than is asked. Not for applause, not for credit, but because that's who you are, because that's the standard you set for yourself when no one's watching, when no one's keeping score, when no one's there to pat your back or post your effort online. Most men live right at the line. They do what's required. They meet the expectation. They check the box. Then they go home and wonder why success doesn't follow them, why recognition skips their name, why growth passes them by. But it's no mystery. Success doesn't visit the man who meets the standard. It finds the one who exceeds it, the one who crosses the line and then draws a new one for himself, and then crosses that too. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices. It's about showing up and doing more consistently. It's about staying 5 minutes longer, caring when others check out, listening when others rush, learning when others coast. It's about giving your full presence in a conversation, finishing a project with polish, not just speed, anticipating needs before they're spoken. It's about delivering with pride, even when the task is small. The man who gives more becomes unforgettable. He becomes trusted, and that trust is everything. It is the silent echo that follows you into rooms when you're not there. It's the reason your name rises in conversations you don't even hear. It's why doors open, offers appear, opportunities arrive seemingly out of nowhere, but they're not accidents, they're answers. The world responds to the man who gives more than it expects. That extra effort, it's not wasted. It's recorded, not just by people, but by life itself. Your own spirit knows when you've gone beyond. You stand taller, you feel stronger. There's a quiet pride that can't be faked or borrowed. You know deeply that you gave your best. And the people around you, they may not say it, but they notice. They always notice. The silent forces of life, your future bosses, your unseen allies, the chain reactions of trust are all being shaped by that one small act of more. So how do you live this? You bring it into everything, not just the big moments, but the daily ones. Every deal, every handshake, every task, every text, every conversation. Add something, add sincerity, add effort, add excellence. Show up early, deliver ahead of time. Offer to help when it's not your job. Learn the extra details, solve the unspoken problem, do what others avoid. And do it without needing to be asked. Now picture two workers. Both show up at the same hour, both do their jobs, but one does just enough. He watches the clock, he checks the list. The other? He does more. He adds clarity to his communication. He double-checks his work. He offers solutions, not just problems. He brings energy. He brings reliability. He makes things smoother for everyone around him. And when promotion time comes, who gets the call? Not the man who was present, the man who was essential. So ask yourself, with complete honesty, have you done what's required, or have you done what's remarkable? Have you gone just far enough to blend in, or far enough to stand out without needing to raise your voice? This is not about being a servant to others' expectations. It's about being a master of your own identity. The man who gives more than promised isn't being used, he's being shaped into something stronger, into someone who becomes irreplaceable. Because over time, your extra effort becomes your personal signature. It says something about you that no resume, no introduction, no elevator pitch can replicate. It says, you can trust me. I don't quit. I don't cut corners. I don't wait to be told. I rise. And that is the currency of real success. Life listens to effort. It watches quietly and then rewards suddenly. So go beyond. Give more than the job description, more than what's comfortable, more than what's noticed. Build a life on the principle of exceeding, not for applause, but for alignment, for your own soul, for your own power, for the quiet, unshakable knowing that you are not just doing your work, you are becoming your work. And here's the secret. When you give more, life gives back in ways you can't predict. Opportunities you never asked for, connections you never chased, confidence you never expected. The world expands for the man who refuses to shrink into the average. So live above the line, act without needing to be seen, and in time you'll realize you don't have to ask for success. You become the kind of man it can't ignore. Decide once and never renegotiate. The strongest men don't spend their days deciding. They don't wake up and ask themselves if they should follow through, if today is the right day to begin, if they still want what they once said they wanted. No, they already decided, once, fully, and that decision became their compass, their engine, their unshakable foundation. They are not wasting mental energy on whether or not they'll act. They know they will, because the choice has already been made, and now all that's left is execution. Most men don't fall because of a lack of strength. They fall because of indecision, because they carry a mind full of half-decided goals and vague commitments. Each day becomes a negotiation. Should I train today? Do I still care about this project? Should I take it easy this morning? They frame their path as a daily vote, and every time they revisit the same question, they drain themselves, not physically, mentally, emotionally. Their willpower gets chipped away, not by the weight of the task, but by the burden of rethinking what should already be settled. But the man who decides once and for all, he walks lighter. He doesn't wrestle with his resolve every morning. He doesn't check in with his feelings before honoring his commitments. He simply moves. His power is conserved, his clarity is intact. He doesn't need to hype himself up because he's not performing. He's becoming. He knows who he is, and that identity dictates his behavior. Not moods, not opinions, not comfort. Understand this. Final decisions don't remove flexibility. You can still adapt. You can still evaluate and redirect, but your purpose, the core of who you are and what you do, is not up for daily discussion. It's not something you debate with yourself in front of the mirror. It's not subject to how tired you feel. It's not negotiated with the noise of the world. It is set, and because it is set, everything else becomes simpler. So how do you train this kind of unwavering resolve? You begin with small, sacred standards. Not vague intentions, but solid rules. I train every day. That's not a goal, that's a law. So when the sun rises, you don't ask if today is the day, you just train. I never miss my morning routine. So it happens, even if you're tired, even if you're late, even if the world feels like it's falling apart. Not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are. You live by principle, not preference. And here's the magic. With every repeated action, you strengthen that identity. You are not a man trying to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You're not someone hoping to be consistent, you are consistent. There is no daily choice, just the daily expression of a decision that was already made. And that's how momentum is built. That's how legacy is built. Quietly, daily, without debate. Now picture two men, both with goals, both with ambition. The first wakes each morning and reevaluates everything. Do I still want this? Is this path still right? Can I skip just this once? He is constantly thinking, constantly weighing, constantly exhausting himself. By midweek, he's already mentally tired, not from action, but from undecidedness. The second man, he decided last year, last decade, maybe even as a boy. And now, his days are not filled with inner turmoil. He simply moves forward. No drama, no internal battle, just progress. Which one builds momentum? Which one crumbles when fatigue hits, when life throws a storm, when motivation fades? The answer is clear. Strength of body is important, but strength of resolve is everything. And that strength doesn't come from emotion, it comes from decision. So ask yourself now, with no noise, no distractions, just your own reflection. Have you made true decisions, or have you made temporary wishes? Are your goals carved in stone or drawn in sand? Do you live by rules or moods? Because if every action is filtered through your feelings, you will forever be a servant to comfort, and comfort never built anything great. The man who builds a legacy is not always the most gifted, not always the most intelligent, but he is the most resolved. His path was not the easiest, it was simply the most certain. And while others debated, drifted, and doubted, he built. Decide once, act forever. That's the code, the discipline, the internal oath. Let others be carried by the wind of uncertainty. You, be the mountain. Be the man who knows what he stands for, so deeply that it moves through his breath, his step, his very presence. That's how you win. Not by deciding every day, but by deciding once and never needing to again. Keep your energy sacred. Energy is your greatest currency. More than time, more than talent, more than even knowledge. Because what good is wisdom if you're too tired to apply it? What use is potential if your mind is fogged, your spirit worn, and your focus scattered by the end of each day? The truth is, it's not the lack of opportunity or ability that holds most men back. It's the quiet, constant leaking of their energy into things that don't matter. The tragedy is, most men never realize this. They wake up and immediately surrender their power. A meaningless argument over ego, a conversation they didn't need to have, a task they said yes to when they should have said no. They hand out their attention like it's free, when in fact it's the most expensive thing they own. By the time night arrives, their body is present, but their mind is bankrupt. Their goals untouched, their vision blurry, their ambition dulled. And yet they wonder, why does nothing move? Because motion requires fuel. And if you waste that fuel before you reach your vehicle, you'll never get out of the driveway. Your job then is not to do more, it is to protect what powers you, to guard your energy like a king guards his crown, ruthlessly, without apology, because you are not limitless. You are not a machine. You are a fire, and fire, if left unattended, dies. So how do you protect it? You begin by observing. You pay attention, not just to your habits, but to the hidden toll they take. What conversations leave you clearer? What ones leave you confused? Who lifts you with their presence, and who pulls you into their storm? What actions sharpen your focus, and which ones scatter your thoughts like dust? Your calendar may say you're productive, but your energy tells the truth. Learn to listen to it. Because not everything deserves a response. Not every message needs a reply. Not every invitation is aligned with your mission. Every yes you give out of guilt or fear is a silent no to your own future. You're not selfish for guarding your energy. You're strategic. You're building something that requires strength, and strength demands conservation. The modern world trains you to exhaust yourself, to chase every notification, to engage every critic, to be available for everyone at all times. But availability is not the same as value. You were not born to be accessible. You were born to be effective, and effectiveness requires focus. Focus requires energy, and energy must be guarded. Picture this clearly. Two men wake at the same hour. One sits for a few quiet minutes, centers himself, chooses his top priorities, and reserves his strength. He moves with purpose. He reacts. He engages. He drains himself in tiny cuts all morning. By noon, both have spent 6 hours, but only one still has the energy to make meaningful progress. One man is building, the other is surviving. That difference, subtle at first, becomes monumental over time. Because the man who learns to channel his energy becomes unbreakable. He doesn't burn out because he knows when to step back. He doesn't get derailed by every demand because he's chosen his direction. He doesn't beg for motivation because his clarity fuels him. So ask yourself honestly, where are you spending power that brings no return? What are the small leaks in your day? The unnecessary debates, the mental clutter, the people you allow too much access, the decisions that could have been avoided if you had a rule. You don't need more time, you need fewer leaks, because your time can be managed, but your energy must be defended. This doesn't mean you live in isolation. It means you live on purpose. You choose when to give. You decide who gets access. You invest where the return is aligned with your mission. And when your fire starts to flicker, you don't push harder. You step back. You refuel. You reset. You remind yourself, I am not a machine, I am a weapon, and even a weapon must be cleaned, sharpened, and preserved. Your energy is not infinite, but it is renewable if you protect it. If you stop trading it for cheap approval, or pointless drama, or obligations you never chose, start choosing yourself. Start honoring your flame, because the man who respects his energy builds a life that reflects it. He doesn't chase success, he draws it, because his focus has weight. His presence has gravity. You are not a bottomless well, you are a fire. Guard your flame. Feed it what matters. Let your energy serve your purpose, not your fatigue. Let it build your future, not by your distractions. And in time, you'll realize success was never about doing more. It was about doing what matters, with energy that's whole, clear, and unstoppable. See failure as proof you're trying. Most men treat failure like a disease, something to be feared, avoided, hidden. They run from it, they disguise it, they rationalize it away or pretend it never happened. And in doing so, they rob themselves of the very thing that could have made them unstoppable. Failure is not a shameful stamp. It is not a verdict of worthlessness. It is the fingerprint of effort, the evidence that you've tried, that you've pushed, that you've reached beyond your current limit. If you're not failing, you're not stretching. You're not growing. You're simply repeating the known, walking in circles, pretending it's progress. Comfort loves repetition. Growth, however, demands disruption. It asks you to risk, to move clumsily, to try, fail, adjust, and try again. The most successful men you admire did not avoid failure, they out-failed everyone else. Not because they were reckless, but because they were relentless. They knocked on the door of success with bloodied knuckles. They didn't walk around failure, they walked through it. Every great invention, every revolutionary idea, every unshakable man was born in a graveyard of failed attempts. Edison didn't stumble upon the light bulb with a lucky guess. He burned through 1,000 failures, and each one gave him more than the last. Not because failure is noble in itself, but because it teaches you things success never will. Failure shows you your weaknesses without filters. It sharpens your thinking. It tests your patience, your ego, your grit. It is life's way of refining your hunger. So how do you shift your relationship with failure? You stop seeing it as a punishment. You expect it, not as a pessimist, but as a builder. You welcome it, not with celebration, but with curiosity. When failure shows up, you sit with it. You ask it what it came to teach you. You record it. You study it. You strip it of its sting by naming it, examining it, extracting its wisdom, and then moving on, wiser, sharper, more dangerous. But that's the problem for most men. They never move on. They sit inside failure as if it's a life sentence. They absorb its message and confuse it with identity. One loss becomes, I'm a loser. One mistake becomes, I'm not good enough. But that's a lie. Failure is not a mirror, it's a teacher. And if you treat it like truth instead of a lesson, it will crush you. But if you treat it like a stepping stone, it will carry you to places comfort never could. Now picture two men. One is a craftsman, rough hands, tired eyes, standing in a workshop surrounded by shattered blades, dozens broken, hundreds discarded. He spent months failing, again and again, each time adjusting, reshaping, learning the angle, the temperature, the pressure, until finally one blade emerges that cuts through steel, the masterpiece. Meanwhile, his rival stands with clean hands and polished dreams. Never tried, never failed. Still thinking it through, still waiting for perfection. Now tell me, who truly succeeds, the man who failed forward 100 times, or the man who stayed safe and invisible? The one who risked embarrassment, or the one who stayed comfortably forgettable? Ask yourself now, are you avoiding embarrassment or building endurance? Are you sitting on your potential to protect your image, or are you willing to let the world see you stumble, knowing that every fall brings you closer to your rise? Failure isn't a stop sign, it's a milestone, a marker that says, you're moving, you're trying, you're alive. It is a whisper from life saying, you're getting closer. And if you listen closely, you'll hear that whisper rising into a roar with every mistake you endure. But let me be clear, failure will leave a mark. It should. You will remember the falls, the embarrassments, the missteps. But it should never leave a wound. Wounds fester when you don't move, when you sit in regret, when you attach failure to your worth. But if you rise, if you keep swinging, those marks become muscle. Scar tissue becomes strength. Your memory becomes your map. And when you start to live this way, something shifts. You don't fear the next attempt. You hunt it. You learn faster. You adapt sharper. You develop an internal steel that no praise, no applause, no soft compliment could ever build. Fail faster. Learn sharper. Rise higher. That is the path. It is not glamorous. It is not polished. It is not easy. But it is real. It is the only way to break out of the loop of mediocrity and into the life most men only dream about. So fail. Not carelessly, but courageously. Let your failure be seen. Let it be yours. Let it speak, but never dictate. Stand over it. Learn from it. And then do what most won't. Keep going. Because every man will face failure, but only a few will grow through it. Be one of the few. Think bigger than your current circumstance. Your life will always rise or fall to the level of your thinking. Not your background, not your circumstances, not even your talent. Thought is the silent architect of destiny. It shapes your reach, your actions, and your outcomes. The man who thinks small, who dreams cautiously, who sets only what seems realistic, builds a life confined by walls he has drawn himself. But the man who dares to think beyond his current place, that man begins to rise above it. Your thoughts are the blueprint of your future. If your goals are modest, your actions will follow suit. You will only invest as much effort as your vision demands. You'll work to survive, not to soar. You'll settle because you've never stretched. And over time, you'll shrink, not because life forced you to, but because your mind gave up the right to imagine more. What traps most men isn't ability, it's belief. They look around and say, this must be it. They mistake their environment for their ceiling. They confuse the familiar with the final. But your current situation, no matter how limited, how average, or how bleak, is not your final form. It's just a starting point, a chapter, not the entire book. The danger lies in staying there mentally, in thinking that the world ends at the edge of your town, your job title, or your bank account. The first war you must win is the war against small thinking. And to do that, you must ask better questions. The questions you ask shape the life you pursue. Most men ask, what can I afford, and spend their days calculating limitations. But the man who rises asks, what can I create? He isn't looking for permission, he's looking for possibility. While others ask, what's realistic? He's asking, what's possible if I refuse to stop? One line of questioning locks the cage, the other shatters it. To think bigger, you must separate yourself from what is and become obsessed with what could be. You must train your imagination like a muscle, stretch it, feed it, discipline it, not with fantasy, but with focused intention. You do not daydream passively, you envision purposefully. You study models, not excuses. You look up, not around. And when people say be practical, you nod, but privately you build a life that defies practicality. Picture this clearly. A man born into a small village, dirt roads, modest homes. The world tells him this is life. But every night he pulls out a map. He studies borders he's never crossed. He reads about empires, about ideas, about men who carved futures out of the unknown. He begins to believe, not in what he sees, but in what he senses is possible. One day he leaves, prepared, determined, and over time, he builds an empire that others can't comprehend. His friend, who stayed behind, never thought beyond the next hill. Not because he couldn't, but because he never asked himself what lay beyond it. That is the difference. Not talent, not timing, but vision. Ask yourself, have you been building your life on convenience or on vision? Are you shaping your choices based on what's around you or what's within you? Vision is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. If you do not control your thinking, your environment will. The opinions of others will become your ceiling. The failures of your past will become your prophecy. You will shrink to match the container you refuse to break. But there is no greatness without imagination. And imagination by itself means nothing if not followed by bold, disciplined pursuit. To think bigger is the first step, but to act on that bigger vision, that's where transformation begins. That's where you wake up earlier, move more intentionally, speak with greater clarity. Your vision demands a version of you that cannot be formed in ease or mediocrity. Thinking bigger doesn't mean you abandon gratitude. It means you refuse stagnation. It means you can love where you are while building towards something far beyond it. It means you can respect your roots, but still aim for the sky. The oak tree honors the acorn not by staying small, but by growing into something far greater. So think bigger, act bolder. Speak to your future as if it's already listening. Surround yourself with people who challenge your limits. Read stories that stretch your belief. Build habits that match the size of your goals. And every day, remind yourself your life will rise or fall to the level of your thinking. You are not meant to repeat history. You are meant to make it, not to fit in the mold, but to break it. And no man breaks anything with small thoughts. Think beyond the current, move with resolve, and watch your world will expand to meet your vision. Make your presence felt even in silence. There is a power greater than noise. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't chase the spotlight. It doesn't fill rooms with endless sound. It simply is. And that power is silent confidence. The kind of presence that turns heads when you walk in, not because of what you say, but because of who you are. It's not volume that commands respect. It's weight. And weight is not worn like a costume. It's carried like a crown, forged in silence, shaped in struggle, and anchored in self-trust. Some men need to be heard. They enter a space and immediately reach for approval. They talk first, talk fast, talk loud. They flood the air with opinions, eager to be seen, terrified of being overlooked. But there's another kind of man, the rarer kind. He doesn't speak to be noticed. He speaks because he has something to say. And sometimes he doesn't speak at all, but you feel him. His presence isn't showmanship, it's substance. He doesn't compete for space, he creates it. This kind of man is not born, he is built, slowly, deliberately, through days of discipline, through nights of reflection, through years of choosing clarity over chaos, purpose over noise. He knows what he stands for. He knows what he's overcome. He's not trying to convince you because he's already convinced himself. That's where his power comes from. That's why you notice him, even in silence. So how do you become this kind of presence? You start by learning the strength of stillness, not weakness, not passivity, stillness. The kind that says, I don't need to chase the room because the room will come to me. You observe, you wait. You don't react to every stimulus. You measure your words, not to manipulate, but to give them weight. You train your voice to matter by not using it unless it serves a purpose. And when you do speak, the room shifts. Because it's rare, because it's real. This doesn't mean you disappear. It means you master yourself. You practice clarity of thought so your speech doesn't ramble. You build conviction so your words don't wobble. You train your tone to reflect your soul, not your insecurity. You realize that in a world addicted to noise, quiet power is a rare and unforgettable force. Now imagine two men in the same room. One fills the air with chatter. He knows everything, has a story for every topic. His voice is the loudest, but his words are scattered. He's noticed but quickly forgotten. Then there's the second man. He watches, he listens. He doesn't need to fill the silence. He waits, calmly, clearly, with purpose. And suddenly, everyone leans in. Not because he demanded their attention, but because he earned it. Not by being loud, but by being undeniable. That is the difference between noise and power, between being heard and being remembered. Ask yourself, are you loud or are you powerful? Do you fill the air to cover your uncertainty? Or do you carry a presence so centered, so certain that words become secondary? True presence is built not through performance, but through practice, the internal kind. You train your posture, you hold your gaze, you move with intention, you honor your time, you honor your word. And over time, something deep within begins to shift. You no longer need the world to confirm you. You become your own confirmation. And that is where presence begins. You don't need to prove your worth with words. Let your discipline speak. Let your eyes speak. Let your silence speak. Let your calm command of self speak. Because when a man has walked through fire, when he's endured what others couldn't, when he has remained steady in storms that rattled the rest, he doesn't have to explain himself. You can feel it in the way he breathes, in the way he listens, in the way he carries the weight of his own life without complaint. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the knowing that you don't have to be loud to be heard, you just have to be true. True to your path, true to your purpose, true to your principles. That's where presence comes from. And when you find it, you stop chasing moments. You become the moment. So make your presence speak, even when your lips don't. Let your stillness carry weight. Let your focus be your voice. Let your life be your statement. And let the world come to understand This is a man who doesn't talk for attention. He commands it, even in silence, because in the end, noise fades, but weight lasts. Walk away from what insults your spirit. Every man walks with a compass inside him, not crafted from metal or magnet, but made of something deeper. Instinct, that quiet inner pull, the subtle shift in your gut when something isn't right. The discomfort you feel when a place shrinks you, when a habit erodes you, when a person dims the light in your eyes. This compass isn't loud, it doesn't shout, but it is always there, speaking with a whisper that only the honest can hear. And most men hear it, but they don't listen. They stay in jobs that corrode their creativity, in friendships that mock their dreams, in routines that numb their edge. Not because they're weak, not because they don't know better, but because the thought of leaving feels more terrifying than the pain of staying. They fear the unknown more than they respect their own soul. They choose familiarity over freedom, predictability over progress, and in that choice they trade who they are becoming for the comfort of who they've been. But there is a moment, a rare, defining moment, when a man realizes he cannot afford to ignore his compass anymore, when he sees that staying is not just slowing him down, it's shrinking him. That moment is where real change begins, not with fanfare, not with drama, but with a quiet, personal decision to walk away from what insults his soul. You don't need to explain that choice. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to rehearse speeches or gather approval like armor. What you need is to move, quietly, firmly, without looking back. Leave the room where your ideas are ridiculed. Leave the job that drains you of dignity. Leave the routine that softens your sharpness, not out of spite, not in anger, but with clarity, because the world outside you cannot honor a vision that you yourself have compromised. And how do you know it's time? You already do. You know it when you wake up dreading the day before it begins, when your smile feels more like a performance than a reflection of joy, when you silence your ideas to fit into rooms that can't handle your ambition. That's your sign, that's your signal, that's your compass saying you were made for more, but not here. We are conditioned to believe that leaving is weakness, that walking away is quitting, but sometimes the bravest act is knowing when something no longer serves the man you are becoming and choosing to step beyond it, not to escape, but to elevate, to make space for something greater, to align your external world with your internal standard. Now imagine this. Two men grow up with big dreams. One stays surrounded by cynics. Every time he speaks of his ambition, they laugh. You, come on. He starts laughing too, not because it's funny, but because he's losing faith in himself. He begins to shrink, plays it safe. A year passes and he's still there, dream intact, but doubting it. The other man, he felt the same laughter, the same pushback, but he listened to the pull inside him. He stepped away. At first, he walked alone. No applause, no comfort, just quiet. But with each step, he gained strength. With each day, his mind cleared. His circle changed. His habits sharpened. And slowly, the vision that once felt distant began to take shape. A year later, he doesn't just believe in his dream. He leads others toward their own. Ask yourself, what are you still holding on to that's been holding you down? What weight have you mistaken for responsibility? What crowd have you confused with community? The man who waits for the world to validate his inner voice will wait forever. The man who respects that voice, who listens to it, honors it, and follows it, will eventually find everything he was searching for. Because life rewards alignment, and your environment must reflect your future, not your fear. This doesn't mean cut and run at every discomfort. Growth requires grit, but it does mean being ruthless about the spaces you allow yourself to inhabit. If a place, a relationship, habit, or a mindset is keeping you small, it's not serving you. And if it's not serving you, it's stealing from you. Stealing time, stealing energy, stealing belief. Leaving doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've recognized that your standard has risen, and you're no longer willing to shrink to match the surroundings. You walk away not to prove anything to them, but to prove something to you, that you're willing to trust your own compass, that your spirit matters more than your comfort zone. And when you leave what drains you, something strange happens. Space opens up, air returns, possibility re-enters the room. You breathe deeper, you walk taller. And though it may be lonely at first, it will never be hollow, because that space, that silence, becomes the foundation of something far more powerful, a life built on purpose, not permission. So listen, the compass is already pointing, follow it, not to escape your life, but to rise into it. Live as if you're already that man. You do not become successful by waiting. Waiting is passive. Waiting is uncertain. Waiting keeps your feet in the same place while your mind drifts towards some imagined future where everything is perfectly aligned and finally ready. But readiness does not create success, behavior does. The man who becomes something greater does so not by hesitating until he feels worthy, but by acting like success is already his. Not with arrogance, not with delusion, but with grounded authority, the kind that says, "This is mine because I decided it would be." There is a shift that happens when a man stops asking for permission and starts embodying the life he wants. He doesn't just dream of the day when his goals come true. He wakes like he already owns them. He moves like a man on a mission. He speaks with clarity, not confusion. He makes decisions without apology. He doesn't wait to feel confident. He acts confidently. And that action gives birth to the very feeling he once believed had to come first. Too many men stay stuck at the edge of their potential, waiting for the perfect sign, the perfect plan, or the perfect mood. But success is not a mood. It's not something you catch like a wave. It's something you build. And it begins with how you show up right now. Not when the world gives you approval, but when you give yourself the authority to live like your purpose already matters. Worthiness is not a condition. It's not something that lands on your shoulders after enough victories. It's not a medal handed out after enough proving. Worthiness is a command, a decision you make when you stop shrinking and start stepping. You must step into the role before the world gives you the title. That's how leadership begins. That's how respect is earned. That's how ideas turn into movements. When someone stops waiting and becomes, so how do you start? You begin with a question that burns through excuses. If I had already achieved my dream, how would I walk today? What would I stop tolerating? What would I no longer delay? What would I finish even if no one noticed? That question cuts through hesitation. It brings the future into the present. And then the answer is simple. Do it. Do it now, not when you feel like it, not when circumstances improve, not when someone else gives you a reason to rise, but now. Because even if it feels like pretending, it's not. It's practice. And practice reshapes your reality. Action rewrites the way you see yourself. The more you behave like the man you're becoming, the more your mind accepts him as real. And eventually he is, because you acted him into existence. Picture this, two men, both with the same dream. One waits to feel ready, to feel talented enough, to feel like a leader. The other acts like a leader. He studies, he speaks up, he moves like someone whose time matters. He makes the hard choices. At first, maybe people laugh. Maybe they call it fake. But in time, something changes. The posture becomes natural. The decisions gain weight, and the world begins to respond, not because he waited to be chosen, but because he chose himself. Same man, different outcome. The only difference? Action. Ask yourself, are you still waiting for permission to act great? Waiting for someone to invite you to the table? For your confidence to appear like a sunrise? Or are you giving yourself the authority to rise now? Are you leading your life from the front or sitting in the audience, watching, hoping, hesitating? Life mirrors your posture. It doesn't give you success because you wish for it. It gives you what you believe you deserve, shown not through your words, but through your habits, your voice, your walk, your choices. If you show up like a man who's already won, life starts treating you like one, not out of magic, out of alignment. You bring your external world into line with your internal vision, and the world adjusts. This is not about faking it. It's about forming it. It's about honoring the man you're called to be, not someday, but now. Because each time you show up with discipline, each time you act with purpose, each time you speak with intention, you lay another brick in the foundation of that future. Until one day you look up and realize you're no longer playing the part. You are the man you once imagined. So stop waiting. The perfect moment isn't coming. The world isn't holding its breath, waiting to anoint you. It's watching to see if you will finally step forward. Will you carry yourself with the weight of someone who knows what he's worth? Will you show up today as if the prize already belongs to you? Because when you act like it does, when you move like success is already stitched into your spine, something shifts. The prize begins to chase you. Opportunities find you. People trust you. Doors open. Not because you waited, but because you walked like you were ready. So walk, speak, decide, behave, not for show, for becoming. Act as if you already hold the crown, and soon the world will see it too. Success doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to habits. Build them with purpose, repeat them with discipline, and your future transforms. Every small action today shapes the legacy you live tomorrow. Start now, live aligned, let your habits speak louder than your hopes, and watch success follow your every move.